What I would like to take a look at today is providing documents to students in Google Classroom, specifically documents that we do not wish to have saved into the student's Google Drive. And it does involve a few steps to be able to do this, but it actually can be done. Now, I'm thinking of things that you would want to provide to students, but you don't want them to keep. Before I get started, one of the things I do want to address is the concept of intellectual property. And so if we are giving something to students that we are wanting to retrieve, that suggests inherently that there is some reason to have the document secured. And that could be that it's an assessment or it's some other piece of intellectual property that you are not wanting to have out there indefinitely. So when we are putting something out that we want to retrieve, we really want to be sure that what we are putting out there is our own intellectual property. This particular set of steps should not be used for a test that another teacher has given you to use in your classroom out of the goodness of their heart, or something that you have brought from elsewhere. This should be for intellectual property that is actually yours, that you own the copyright on. So if you've bought something from Teachers Pay Teachers and it's given you a license for one classroom, then you're good because you have the authorization to use that for that one classroom. But assessments can be a lot of work to create, and so we want to be really careful with those. But if you're looking at a resource of your own and you're wanting to provide it to students using Google Classroom, but it's not really a good fit for Google Forms, there's a way around it. So I'm going to take you through the steps. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Google group so that I can revoke the access to the document with one click. Without the group, every time I put a document out to students that I want to retrieve back, I have to do it student by student by student if I don't create the group. So I'm going to invest a couple minutes at the start of the school year to create a group for my class that I have this consideration for. And then from that point on, it's a single click to give privileges and to revoke privileges. So I'm going to go to groups.google.com. You can also do a search for Google Groups. So I'm going to create a group for my digital citizenship class. I'm going to call it DigCit 2021. And it's going to create me a group email address, something at cesd73.ca. I don't need the description, so I'm going to go next. Who can search for it? Let's make it group members. I'm just going to tighten this down because there's no reason to not tighten it down. So I'm going to make it only invited users, and then I'm going to slide everything here over to I'm the only one who can really do anything with this, because all I want is that email address where I can send one email and it goes to every student. So I hit next, and now I can add group members. So if we take a look at my classroom here, and we go into people, you'll see that I've added a couple of accounts, our Student Services one and our Learning Services one, for the purposes of demonstrating exactly how this works. So in my group, I'm going to add these two students. So I would need a class list in front of me if I had more than two students, but I'm going to put my LST user on there, and I'm going to put my SST user on there. I'm not going to worry about managers, not going to do a welcome message, and the subscription, I'm going to just go with no email. And we will keep this turned on to directly add members. So I'm going to create the group, and that's all I need. While I've got this screen open, I'm going to copy this just to have it handy. It will come up right away, and I'll show you here in a second. It will come up when you start to type it in on a Google Doc. So we've got our digital citizenship class for the 2021 school year. There's my email address. I'm going to need that in a minute. So now I'm going to come back over to my Google Drive, and we're going to make a new Google Doc. We're going to pretend this is my test. So I've got the test questions on here, and I could have the students answering them on their own Google Doc as opposed to on the test itself, because again, I'm wanting these questions to not go into their Google Drives. So we're going to create a pretend test here. So we'll call it pretend test, because that's literally what we are doing here, is we're pretending we're giving a test. And this is the top secret question that I spent all last night thinking of. and it is my intellectual property. Okay, and I put that on just as a reiteration that we only do this when it is actually our document. So I'm going to come over here to my Google Classroom, and I'm going to set up this test. I'm going to set it as an assignment, because when I go quiz assignment, it forces me into Google Forms. And for 95% of my assessments, Google Forms is great. But once in a while, it's not quite what I need. So I can create an assignment here, and I'm going to call it Pretend Test. And now we're going to come back over to the document itself, because we're going to actually do the security part on the test itself. And this does involve a couple steps. So let's go to our Pretend Test, and I'm going to share the document. Now here's where that Google group comes into play. So I'm going to change the link to be restricted. So I want it to be restricted, so only people added can open with this link. No one's been added yet. So I'm going to start typing my digsit. There it is, comes right up, but I copy pasted that just in case it didn't. So digsit 2021. I'm not going to have it notify them because I don't want them getting access to this through their Gmail. I want this to only be posted on my Google Classroom. Now right now they are set as editor. That's not going to work. I want viewer. I do not want them to be able to do anything with this document except read what's on it, use it for the purpose I intend, and then I'm going to revoke it. So to start that process, I'm not going to stop here. Yes, they have viewer access, but this is still going to put a copy in their drive. So I'm going to go into this little gear here, and I'm going to uncheck this, that viewers and commenters can see the option to download, print, and copy. So we've already now locked it another layer further than we generally do. I'll come back here, and I'm going to go share, but I'm still not quite done. So now I'm going to go back into share, and I have a neat new thing that's been added under viewer, and that's called give temporary access. So this is still not quite as tight as I wish it were, but if you see underneath here, I also have a remove option. So what I do is, even though I'm going to revoke it before the end of the day tomorrow, I'm still going to do the temporary access. So today is April 30th. So I am going to make the access revoke tomorrow. I can't change the time, but it is going to expire tomorrow at 1 minute before midnight. Now, I'm actually not going to use that. I'm putting it in as a safety net just in case I get busy. Classrooms are busy places, and I kind of lose sight of the fact that I wanted to revoke that document. Now I'm going to save this, and I'm not going to link it through Google Drive. I'm going to take this share button and I'm going to copy the link. Then I'm going to come over here to my digital citizenship class, and I'm going to just paste the test questions are here, and I'll paste that link. And I don't think I need to do that, but I am going to take off that word edit because I don't want them being able to edit. That's all I'm going to do with this. Now I can add my due dates and all those other things, and that's up to you. We're not going to go into that here. We've already covered that. I'm going to assign this. So now I've got an assignment called Pretend Test. Test questions are here, links to that document. So now we're going to take a look at what the students are going to see when they come into their Google Classroom to view this test. So I'm just going to overlay my screen with this one. And if we go into Pretend Test, now you'll see up here, I'm not on my own account, I'm on the Student Services account, as I showed you in my students list. And I've got the Learning Services account. So they see this Pretend Test, and they can open this Pretend Test. So there's the test. You can see that they can request edit access, which I'm absolutely not going to give them. I just want them to be able to see this. So we see that we've got a couple badges here now. So I've got my Student Services kid who's got this document open. I've got my Learning Services kid who's got this document open, and I can see that I still have this document open. So I'm doing my test, or we're covering whatever this content is that I do not wish the kids to be able to keep. And if we go into their Google Drives right now, you can see that that Pretend Test is in the recent area of Student Services Google Drive, and it is also on the Learning Services in their recent Google Drive. So right now, while they have it open, It's sitting there, and it will remain there until 11:59 tomorrow night, just like I set it on the document, or when everybody's done the test. So at the end of class, whether it's a virtual class due to quarantine type scenarios, or whether you're doing this as a face-to-face exam. I'm sure if you're doing it face-to-face, you'd probably be doing it on paper anyways. But now I'm going to go back to my pretend test here. I'm going to open these sharing settings again, and I'm going to remove their access now. So if I go remove, and I have to save it, then we're going to go back and we're going to take a look in their Google Drives, in the recent, we're going to see what we see. So I'm going to bring that screen back over here, and it's gone. I didn't click anything to make it go away. It just disappeared. And so that's in the Learning Services Google Drive. Let's double check in the Student Services. Yeah, it's gone as well. They still have it open, but then there's a note that the access to the file has changed. So if they reload it, they're going to get the you need access. So it is gone. They don't have a trace in their Google Drive. They no longer have access to it. Of course, we are always up against things like they could have taken a screenshot of it. That's true. And I would say that in our face-to-face classrooms, they could probably also take a photo with their cell phone. I know some teachers collect cell phones at the start of a test or a quiz or an exam, but some don't. And we're trusting that our kids actually gave us their devices when we do that, because they can just as easily take their phone out of their pocket and take a photo of a paper document, just like they could take a screenshot of a digital document. So I really don't see that as being a compromising of the integrity of the document, but it does go to the statement I made a couple times already, that this has to be something of your own creation, so that if a student does take a screenshot or does do something with this particularly secured document, the only person who should be on the hook for the accident is you, because it was your property. This can get pretty dicey if it was someone else's that a student took a screenshot of, but if it's your own, this will actually do the trick. And so you see why I wanted to have a group set up for all my kids. It was one click to add them, and it was one click to revoke the access. Otherwise, I'd be doing that click thing 30 times in and 30 times out anytime I want to do this. So having the group is handy. And of course, the other thing you can do with it, which we can do inside of Google Classroom, where we can email all students there. You can also use your group email. So that little email that comes right there, DigCit 2021 UC group at CESD, I can email all my kids with that too. I don't know if that's helpful or valuable, different person, different style. So I mention it just in case it is helpful to you to have access to that for your email as well. So I hope this gives you a little bit more freedom, a little more luxury to provide some content that you don't wish for students to retain through Google Classroom. Thanks for watching.